Hi there, and welcome to another tutorial video for Ion Pro. Today we're going to cover basic inventory management and a few more advanced scanning features. We'll start by opening the preferences and creating a new inventory folder. Alternatively, we can choose from one we've had open before. We can also select whether to start a new session on every startup or resume using our last open file. As you can see, this hasn't immediately taken effect. We either need to restart the program or start a new session file. Every time we load or save a session, it'll read all the Ion files in that same folder in order to assemble our inventory contents. Once we've started a new session, we'll start by scanning a few cards. When Ion detects a card, it'll be added to the center buffer, and scanning will stop until the detected card is moved away or no longer visible. We see here that covering it with our hand will reset the scanning circle indicator. It will add the current buffer card to the working inventory list and add a new copy to the buffer. When a card is in the buffer, we can remove it using the escape key or add it to our working inventory by pressing the spacebar. Additionally, scanning a new card will push whatever card is currently in the buffer to the list. Pressing the spacebar again will increase the quantity of the last card added to the buffer, whereas hitting the backspace key will reduce its quantity by 1. When a card is scanned, we can denote whether it's foil or not by pressing the F key or clicking this foil button. We can also change its condition by clicking these radio buttons, or its set by clicking the center buttons, using this drop-down menu, or using the arrow keys. Additionally, pressing the plus or minus keys will change the quantity of whatever card is in the buffer, or pressing the +4 button will add a playset to the list immediately. We don't actually have 4, so let's just reduce this back down to 1. While a card's in the buffer, we can press the card details button to modify a few more things, such as its language, whether it's altered, or add notes to it. When we're all done, we'll hit Ctrl S to save our inventory to a new file. The default file name is today's date. We can then view all the detail about the cards we've just scanned, and even sort them by price. If we imagine that we're dealing with a buy list from a customer, we can then show him all the prices and let him decide. In this case, let's imagine the customer decides that he doesn't want this card with no buy list price to be sold at a bulk rate. And he also wants to sell this Gilded Lotus by himself because he thinks he can do better than the spread we're offering. We then need to remove these cards from our list, and we can do that in a number of ways. First, we can change the quantity to a negative value. It'll first check to see if we have this card in our inventory. If not, it will display this warning. As you can see in the inventory pane, we only have 1, so removing 2 would be a bad idea. Additionally, we can leave this quantity as a positive value and switch over into subtraction mode, which makes all adjustments negative. However, when we scan this Gilded Lotus, we see that it's not in the inventory. This is because it's currently selected as near mint, whereas we only have a lightly played version in our inventory. Alternatively, we can click this -1 button over here to reduce its quantity by 1. It's important to note that doing this will not remove the current card from the buffer, so if we don't want to add another copy, we either need to make sure we're in information mode, or to clear the buffer after every adjustment using the escape key. When we're all finished, we can then save the session and see that our inventory list is reduced by 2 cards. If we view the session, these 2 cards we just removed are no longer in the list. If for some reason we choose to process another transaction in the same folder, we can save it as its own file, and this will be reflected in our inventory total. If we view our session contents, we see that only this index is added, but if we view the inventory, all 4 cards spread amongst 2 files will be shown. Normally, in the case of reprints, Ion will do its best to predict what set the card belongs to. However, if we take for instance this Terramorphic Expanse, which was printed in approximately 10 sets with identical flavor text, we see it's not always accurate. Here, every time we scan the card, we see it assigns a different set pick, and then weights each set differently in its list of predictions. If for some reason we've already sorted all of our cards by addition, we can actually choose what sets will show up in these predictions. Here, if we add Magic 2011 as the only set being scanned, we see it adopts a much more stringent criteria when predicting sets, and the 2011, since it's the only active set, is always set as the top pick. If we've already sorted our cards by whether they're foil or not, we can enable this foil mode box. This makes it so every time a card is scanned in, it is automatically marked as foil. Lastly, if we've already sorted all of our cards by language, condition, or otherwise just need to add a note to the entire session, we can use the batch fill option from the edit menu. This will open a dialog that lets us set either a condition, note, URL, or language for all of the cards in the current session. We'll see if the condition isn't valid, it gives a warning, so we just change it to a valid ion scanner value. Additionally, we can mark each of these cards as Japanese, but we don't need to do that right now. It's important to note that this can't be undone, so just double check that everything's correct in your session preview before saving the file. That just about wraps up our second tutorial on how to use the ion scanner. In the next and last installment, we'll cover how to import custom prices, export custom formatted lists, and apply price modifiers to all scanned cards.